How's it flying, guys? Lance Hawk 30 here, and what a heck of a video to come back to for a fat electrician. Alright. Yes, I know it's been a bit. I am probably only a couple of weeks, really, but in internet speak, let's be real, that's the long time. Long time. But anyways, yeah, hour and 10 minutes long of a video that I gotta get through today, and I'm not gonna have much free time afterwards, but yeah, and it is largely my fault that I am late, and also a little disclaimer, I am gonna be occasionally dipping in here, so to pass the time, so if you hear anything, that's more than likely what it is, so I'm just gonna get a little bit at a time. Godfather of the Green Berets, Billy Waugh, he's gonna pronounce it for me, and I'll save myself the headache of trying to guesswork it. Alright, Fat Electrician. First video back to the Fat Electrician channel in a bit. I guess let's just go ahead and go. Link to the original will be in the description. Make sure you've seen it before you watch my reaction. Let's go.
And I quote, "From Korea to Afghanistan and every conflict in between, I have fought whomever my country has ordered me to fight. For 50 years in 64 countries, I have sought and destroyed the enemies of my country, whether they be called communists or terrorists, wherever they hide." Today we're talking about Billy Waugh, aka
Waugh,
the Godfather of the Green Berets. Now I'm here to tell you the story about Billy Waugh, but we have to get one thing very clear right out of the gate. Whether you want to admit it or not, everybody wants to be cool. I want to be cool. You want
I mean, I guess in some way that's part of the reason why I've wanted to start doing this channel. Let me up the resolution on that a little bit. Make it smoother. All right.
Want to be cool, but none of us will ever be as cool as Billy Waugh showing off his integrally suppressed MP5 at the age of 72 while he was actively hunting Osama bin Laden.
Fuck bin Laden.
And full transparency, this is usually the part of the video where I have a cool monologue lined up that's designed to hook you and draw you into this story, but today, I'm just going to read you this old man's rap sheet. One of the only men to ever jump out of a plane with a nuclear warhead strapped to his body. He is a pioneer of halo jumping. His awards are as follows: 1 silver star, 4 bronze stars with V device, 4 Army Commendation medals, 14 air medals, 2 combat infantry badges, and 8 purple hearts.
But I'm not done yet.
Airplane crashes survived.
Not done yet.
2 helicopter crashes survived. 3 number of enemies killed in combat unknown. Number of missions completed redacted. The unclassified men of note that he has hunted: Edwin P. Wilson, General Giap, Osama bin Laden, and probably the most notorious terrorist of all time, Carlos the Jackal. Decades in operation: 5. Countries he's operated in: 64. Number of times that he was captured by the enemy: 0. And we're gonna get to it right after a word from our sponsor.
Nicholas.
Number 1, is this a repeat ad? And number 2, wow, unconfirmed number of kills too, with everything else he just said, and we don't know for sure how many people he killed.
What is this?
That's the new CMMG BR4.
When did you get it?
I've had it.
Nice recovery.
No, I would have
Yeah.
remembered something like this.
Okay, fine. I just.
Okay,
had
it's
it,
a
but
funny
I
ad,
can't
so I'm not
super
gonna
one
grab
with
too much
Cerakote
about it.
Like a Busch Light can.
So you got a new toy. What do I get?
I mean, what do you want?
I don't know. I'll do some shopping and I'll let you know. So have fun with the ad.
Mayday. Mayday.
This video is brought to you by Delete Me.
Yeah, I've got Delete Me.
Business model. You give them money, they turn around and they make sure that online data.
I do have
selling
Delete
your
Me.
Personal information online. Okay, here's the deal. Pretty much anytime you use a free service on the internet and you click that little box that says "I agree to the terms and conditions," you've basically just agreed to allow them to harvest as much of your personal information as humanly possible.
You know, I'm gonna take this time to check on some applications because I am currently job searching, and I need
But when you have Delete Me, they go and they monitor all of these.
I am
online
going
data
to
brokers for
need
your personal information,
to
and then if they
be
find it,
making
they
money
submit all the opt-out
again here
forms on your
soon.
behalf, so they have
I'm
to
not
take
unemployed
down
yet,
selling
but
that
I don't have much
information. So
longer,
when you
so
buy Delete Me,
hoping
you're not
somebody
actually
calls me
buying
back here
anything, you're
soon.
just buying your way out of all the negative consequences of all the free shit that you've already gotten.
So, but the one plus side, I don't feel bad talking over him right now because I've already seen this ad. I've already got Delete Me.
You haven't even gotten yet. So if you want to give Delete Me
But
a try, there's going to be a link in a discount
yeah,
code down
at the
below.
very
Let's get back
least,
to the video.
when I have that short period, Billy Waugh, when I have that short period of being unemployed, I'm gonna kick myself in the ass and make myself work on catching up.
All right, our story begins in Bastrop, Texas on December 1st, 1929,
Texas.
when a beautiful, adorable little baby boy named Billy Waugh is brought into the world. Which should be unsurprising at this point because it feels like every single badass we cover on this channel either has bad eyesight and has to con their way into the military, or they're born in Texas for some reason.
Or born
Either
in
way,
Texas.
like all the other war heroes from World War II, he was born during or right after the Great Depression, grew up in extreme poverty down in Texas. At the age of 10, Billy's father passes away from liver cirrhosis, and from that point on, he begins working
rough.
3 jobs to help his mother put food on the table because she's only a substitute teacher. He's stocking groceries at the local grocery store, he's a paper boy, and he's running the concession stand at the local movie theater. As I'm sure you can imagine, under these circumstances, he matures very quickly for his age, and on top of that, he's also very intelligent, having straight A's the entire time he's in school. Several years later, when Billy's 12 years old,
good.
seemingly on a random Sunday in December of 1941, while he's working the concession stand at his local movie theater, the sheriff barges in and orders the person running the projector to cut the movie off and turn the lights on. The local sheriff then gets up on stage in front of the movie screen and addresses the entire theater, informing them that America has just been attacked at Pearl Harbor by the Empire of Japan, and he doesn't know what's going to happen next. You gotta remember, this is 1941 and news travels slowly. Nobody really knows what's going on. All they know is that America is under attack, and because of that, his local sheriff plans for the worst. He tells them that at any given moment, men with guns could begin parachuting out of the sky to attack them, or planes could start flying overhead and begin bombing American cities. Because of this, the local sheriff orders everybody to go home, lock your doors, turn the lights off, and cover your windows with sheets to not be an identifiable target for an overhead enemy plane. Hearing this, all the people funnel out of the movie theater.
Scary.
Billy stays for a little bit, closes down the concession stand, helps close down the movie theater, and then goes home. For the next 3 years, Billy volunteers for every shift he can get at that movie theater because he wants to be able to watch the newsreels of what's going on in the military right before the movie plays. He becomes obsessed with it. He wants to join the military and fight back, but he's only a kid. And this goes on for years. And then when he's 15 years old, he hears a rumor that in California, the United States Marine Corps is allowing 15-year-olds to enlist and go off and fight the Japanese. Hearing this, Billy drops everything and just starts hitchhiking
Does it
to
end up being
California.
true?
No money, no ID, no plan, nothing. Over the course of a couple of days, he makes it all the way to Las Cruces, New Mexico, and he gets picked up by the local police department for being out past curfew.
Does he lie about his age, I'm assuming? Or did you find out he needs to lie about his age? We'll see.
15-year-old Billy, unable to produce an ID, gets taken into the police station. He then proceeds to tell the cops everything. He's a 15-year-old kid. He's running away from home to join the Marine Corps. The cops tell him, like, hey, literally just a rumor. That's not true. The Marines are not letting 15-year-olds enlist, at least not knowingly. So, we're not gonna let you continue hitchhiking across the entire country. We're going to make sure you go back home. So you get to stay here until you can come up with enough money to buy a bus ticket. We're going to take that money, buy you a bus ticket, and ship your ass back home to Texas. So Billy, at the age of 15, does what any main character badass would do. He calls mom, begs mom to send him money. She agrees that she's going to wire money to the police department, but only if he promises her that he is going to finish high school. And he reluctantly agrees, gets the bus ticket, goes back home. So Billy goes right back to doing what he was doing. He's working at the movie theater, and around...
Yeah, that's the right call, you know. That really is the right call. I mean, we're going to see his true exploits here soon. Kids, don't run away from home to join the military before you're 18 or anything like that. You know, think about these things before. You know, I don't have that experience. So anybody that, again, read the description. For anybody that's new, that's wandered in here, that sees the username Lance Corporal Hawk 30 and assumes I was in the military, please read the description for the story of why I use that username despite not having any military service there. So it's basically a high school football nickname. That's all that was. Fuller story is in the description.
At this point in time, the newsreels start showing a new Army unit that they've come up with, an Army airborne unit where paratroopers are going to jump out of planes into enemy territory and fight the enemy from within. And Billy becomes obsessed. He wants to be a paratrooper more than anything. When Billy's not in school and he's not working, he's reading about being a paratrooper, and he finds out that the most important, most unique part of a paratrooper's kit is the unique jump boots that they use, and he wants a pair more than anything. So he starts slowly saving up nickels and dimes, whatever money he can get, until he can go off and buy his very own pair of paratrooper boots. And this goes on for years. He lives up to his word, fulfilling his promise to his mom.
Nickel
He
and
does
diming
graduate high school with a 4.0 and then immediately enlists in the United States Army to become a paratrooper. And he does exactly that. He becomes a paratrooper, gets attached to the 82nd Airborne Division out of Fort Bragg. No, not that one. Definitely not that one. There you go, that one.
Hold on a sec.
And he does exactly that. He becomes a paratrooper, gets attached to the 82nd Airborne Division out of Fort Bragg. No, not.
Oh, was that the prior, what, Confederate general, right? Bragg?
That one.
Hold on.
Definitely
Yeah,
not that
renaming.
one.
Okay, that's
There you go, that
they
one.
did. All right. Okay.
Now, by the time Billy gets through training and is actually...
Hold on a minute. Hold on. Is that an intentional spelling? Or was he rushing through... Or was there some slight rushing through the editing? Because I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be, see, taste with an E at the end of combat. We'll find out. Tastic.
Now, by the time Billy gets through training and is actually out in the Army, World War II is over. There's no prospects of going to combat on the horizon, and he kind of hates it the entire time. It's basically like work out in the morning,
Yeah, I
clean
was
your
wondering
guns,
about that.
maintenance cars in the motor pool, doing a bunch of stuff that isn't being out in combat.
Yeah, but pretty much I was wondering if that was, by the time he finally joined, it was just over. So
Billy absolutely hates it. And this goes on for years, and right as Billy's contract's about to be up and he has to decide whether he's going to re-enlist or not, the Korean War kicks off, so Billy re-enlists for another 3 years just at the prospect of potentially getting to go off into combat. And Billy gets just that. He goes over to Korea as a private first class, fights through the entire war, and by the time the Korean War is over, he is a sergeant first class, which is a pretty rapid ascend through the ranks. Reflecting on his time in the Korean
Sergeant First Class? That's, E... E2 is private first class, E3 is specialist, E4 is corporal, E5 sergeant. I'm trying to remember how far up. That's fast, though. That's fast. Sergeant first class rank is at an E7. That's an E7. Dude started the war as an E2, went to an E7. Holy crap.
War, he said, and I quote, "I didn't like the Army at all until I got my first taste of combat in Korea. For the first time in my military life, I felt completely at home." After the Korean War, Billy gets orders that he's going to be stationed in Augsburg, Germany, so he starts making his way there, and as he's making his way there, he boards a train to go into Germany, and on that train, there's a couple of sergeants, and these sergeants have a weird patch that he's never seen before. It's an airborne patch. There's only a couple of airborne units, and it's weird that he's never seen this one before. It's this red shield with a plane and a parachuter jumping out the bottom of it. So he goes up and asks the sergeants, like, "Hey, what unit is this? I've never even heard of you guys." At first, they're kind of being secretive, but over the course of this train ride, Billy keeps prying at them, and eventually they tell him that they're part of a new secret unit that just got formed called the 10th Special Forces. And this is America's first official Special Forces unit that would eventually grow and become what we know today as the Green Berets. And the reason they were called the 10th Special Forces is because they were so secretive that if anybody did ever find out about them, they wanted them to find out about the 10th Special Forces unit, making people think that there must be at least 9 others, when in reality, there was actually only 1. So Billy keeps prying. He's like, "Cool, that's great, but like, what do you guys actually do? Like, what does being Special Forces even mean?" Because the concept wasn't even known at the time. And these guys are like, "Honestly, we don't even know yet. We're just getting highly trained in absolutely everything, and we're supposed to be a force multiplier on the battlefield. We're supposed to be the guys that go on all the top secret, super dangerous missions that nobody talks about." And hearing that, Billy's immediately sold. He has to be a part of this unit, so he starts asking questions, and they're like, "Actually, we are looking for people
Like, just, he subjected himself to a sales pitch, didn't even realize it.
to come and join the organization and be a part of it that have a bunch of combat experience. You're a sergeant first class. You could probably apply and go through the training process and maybe make it onto one of the teams." And he does just that. Billy applies, ends up getting accepted, becomes one of America's first ever Green Berets. And for the next 5 years, we don't really know what Billy was up to. Potentially, it wasn't worth mentioning, or more likely, it hasn't been declassified yet. But what we do know, when asked about it, Billy said, and I quote, "I helped develop new ways to fuck with the enemy to the max from within." Over the course of this 5 years, Billy
That's
climbs to the
phrasing.
top. He's one of the best operators that America has. He's literally a leader in a tier 1 unit. If you don't know what that means, there's 3 tiers. Typically speaking, tier 3 is like your normal ground pounding infantry units. This is like your 82nd Airborne, your 101st, your 10th Mountain Division, your conventional warfare guys. Tier 2, which is often confused with tier 3, is your normal Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, Green Berets. And then they have tryouts, and they take the best from tier
SEALs are tier 2?
Tier 2 and put them in a Tier 1 unit. So this is the things you've heard of like Delta Force, CAG, SEAL Team 6, the unit. These are all Tier 1 guys, and Billy is a leader at the Tier 1 level. So when Billy does come back into focus or on the record in 1960, this is like the peak of the Cold War. There's all kinds of crazy new ideas going on of like what the future of warfare is going to look like. Everybody's investing in nuclear bombs, trying to figure out new ways to implement nuclear warfare. We've got America with Atomic Annie figuring out how to shoot nukes out of artillery. We've got the British over here developing chicken-powered nuclear landmines. We've got the Davy Crockett, which is where American soldiers are trained to shoot a small nuclear warhead out the side of a moving Jeep with a recoilless rifle. And while all this crazy shit's going on, somebody inside the US government realizes like, hey, this is all great, but there's a lot of work involved. You know what I mean? I have to get this giant artillery piece in the right place at the right time, or I have to get a Jeep on the ground, or I have to bury a chicken-powered nuclear landmine. What if I just want to create a second spawn point for the sun in secrecy to really surprise the enemy? So the United States, in top secrecy, created green light teams. The idea was basically take the best Green Berets that we have, train them to jump out of a plane, like with a parachute, with an atomic bomb strapped to them. They would then land, sneak behind enemy lines, plant the nuclear bomb wherever it needed to be planted, set it on a multiple hour-long timer, and fucking run. And Billy is selected to be the leader of one of these teams. Okay, just so we're all on the same page, it is now Billy's job to jump out of a plane with a portable star strapped to his cock, sneak behind enemy lines,
The first thing on that is a portable star strapped to his cock. And we just talked about the chicken nukes. We just talked about the chicken mines. Wait a minute.
He is selected to be the leader of one of these teams. Okay, just so we're all on the same page, it is now Billy's job to jump out of a plane with a portable star.
That's not a portable star, that's his balls. That's his balls of steel. For carrying and, like, jumping with a nuke strapped to him. That's his balls of titanium.
Strapped to his cock, sneak behind enemy lines, arm a nuclear warhead, and get out of the blast radius as fast as possible. Okay, I don't think you understand the gravity of what I've just said, okay? Most military personnel aren't trusted with shit, okay? The average infantry grunt is trusted to go into combat with a machine gun and kill the enemy. He's also not trusted to be responsible enough to have a fucking toaster oven in his barracks bedroom. And then you've got Billy over here, who's such a badass that Uncle Sam is like, oh, you want to jump out of a plane with a live nuclear warhead and then carry it behind enemy lines to put it in the right spot, arm it yourself, and then dip? I don't see a problem with that. Okay, this is literally insanity. Luckily, America never elects to use this option
I was about to say.
So in 1961, Billy gets sent off onto another mission called Operation White Star in Laos.
White Star, Laos.
Now you gotta remember, this is like peak Cold War. America is still very
Next
much
to
running on the
right?
Truman Doctrine. If you don't know what the Truman Doctrine is, quick, dirty, oversimplified version. Basically, America views communism like it views cancer, and they're committed to do whatever it takes to stop it from spreading. So whenever a country is being threatened by communism, they're gonna send in money, guns, they're gonna send in Green Berets to train people in guerrilla warfare. They're gonna do anything and everything they can within or outside of the realm of the Geneva Convention to make sure that communism doesn't spread any more than it has to. And that's basically what Operation White Star is. Billy goes over to Laos and begins training rice farmers in guerrilla warfare tactics and giving them weapons so they're able to fight off communists should they come. So that goes on for about a year and a half, and then Geneva steps in and is like, hey, you can't do that. It's a war crime, whatever. So America's like, oh, are bad, and then America proceeds to stop doing that, and Billy immediately goes straight from Laos right next door to Vietnam and continues doing the same exact thing. Now, by this point in 1962, Vietnam has already been split for a while. North and South Vietnam officially
we're not involved yet at that point.
So you have the North, which is the communist NVA that's being backed by China and the Soviet Union, and then you have the South that's being backed by the United States. Bear in mind, the Vietnam War, as America knows it, doesn't start until 1965 after the incident at the Gulf of Tonkin, so Billy is there before the Vietnam War even starts, between 1962 and 1965, pretty much the entire time, where him and men like him train and equip over 87,000 South Vietnamese to fight the enemies to the north. So by 1965, when America does get directly involved, Billy's already been there for 3 years. He knows the people, he knows the culture, he knows the terrain, he's acclimated to the climate.
So he's basically already there, ready to prime whoever else is coming along.
and he basically has trained his own army at this point. And he immediately gets to work leading these men into combat, conducting raids. June 17th, 1965, Billy is going to lead a 90-man element to conduct a raid. This element is comprised of himself, 2 other Green Berets, 1 guy from the CIA, and 86 South Vietnamese that he has already trained. So Billy's going into this with 3 other guys that actually know what's going on, and then 86 newbies that, who knows, as soon as the bullets start flying, they might drop their guns and run off. He has no idea. But they're launching an ambush, so that's probably the best possible outcome. Hopefully, they're going to be able to surprise the enemy and kill off everybody before too much happens, boost these guys' morale, give them some combat experience, get confidence, the whole 9 yards. So Billy's leading this huge element through the jungle, advancing towards the objective, moving in dead silence. And as they come up, Billy sees an NVA scout up ahead about 500 meters away from the target, obviously just out there on guard duty, walking through patrol. Dude's not expecting anything. He's got his AK-47 slung around his shoulder. He's smoking a cigarette, hanging out. He's done this 500 times. Nothing's ever happened.
Yeah, he's not expecting
anything. So Billy kind of like hunkers down, orders one of his South Vietnamese guys to sneak up on him and kill him with his knife. Dude does exactly that. They keep advancing towards the target, and as they're about 200 meters away from the objective, he walks right up on 2 people hunched over picking up firewood. It's a man and a woman. Billy immediately thinks to himself, oh shit, okay, this is probably the cooks. They're getting firewood to cook breakfast super early in the morning. Maybe I can like capture them and hog tie them and gag them and then come back for them later and release them. Or like he's trying to figure something, and while he's figuring that out in his head, the man turns around, sees Billy, reaches for his pistol. Billy immediately lunges forward, kills him with his knife. As that's going on, the woman grabs a piece of firewood and begins hitting Billy with it. He ultimately ends up killing her as well, and that made some noise. So now Billy's thinking, okay, we got to pick this operation up and move a lot faster, because if some sentry heard that and they come to investigate and find us, we're going to lose the element of surprise, and then all hell's going to break loose. So Billy splits up the element into 4 groups, each one being led by either himself, a Green Beret, or the CIA guy, and they hightail it towards this objective. So they roll up on the objective. It's this enemy camp, and there's these 3 bamboo hooches that are like 40 feet wide. Billy guesstimates how many beds are in.
I'm assuming when he says hooch, it's talking about like something involving in the encampment, but just I don't know why the word hooch sounds kind of funny. Hooch.
Side of each hooch, figuring they're working in shifts, 3 guys to a bed, does the quick math in his head. At most, there's 250 guys here. He's got 90 plus the element of surprise. This shouldn't be an issue. So Billy gives the order to attack. They open up with gunfire. They're throwing grenades. They basically level this hooch, and the entire battle is over before it really even starts. Billy guesstimates they killed about 150 NVA soldiers. The rest probably ran off into the jungle. His men are celebrating. They're cheering. You've got celebratory gunfire. They're raiding all the stuff. They're picking up all the Soviet weapons. They're examining everything. And then, off in the distance, Billy hears a bugle. At this point, Billy's surrounded by a bunch of noobs. None of these guys know what the bugle call means, but Billy fought in Korea, and he knows that when you hear the bugle, that means the commies are coming.
Yeah. Yeah, time to pack up and go. Yeah, time to go.
What Billy didn't realize is this wasn't just a single camp out in the jungle with 3 hooches in it. It was one of about 12 camps of 3 hooches, all in close proximity to each other. And Billy's taken out one of 12, meaning that it wasn't 250 men there. It was like 3,000. Billy has all this run through his head in the matter of a second, has his oh fuck moment, pulls out his flare gun, fires a flare up into the sky, which all of his men know is the signal to retreat back to the rallying point, which is an old cemetery about 650 meters away. It's on top of a hill, so they're going to have the high ground, some cover, and that's where their comms equipment are, so they're going to be able to call in airstrikes. It's the only chance they have.
They're going to need them airstrikes.
Billy fires the flare, everybody kind of looks at him like, what the fuck's going on? And then immediately, machine gun fire opens up, and green tracer rounds are flying everywhere, and they all take off running back into the jungle, headed towards that cemetery. At this point, it's complete chaos. Everybody's running off into the jungle in different directions. It's essentially every man for himself. So Billy's running through the jungle. The enemy's about 100 meters behind him, shooting at him, and he's dodging all the bullets through nothing but luck, and he gets to within 150 meters of the cemetery, which is great, but the problem is the last 150 meters between him and the cemetery is a rice paddy, which is part of the reason that it would make a great defensive position.
Yeah, great defensive position if you can get there, but while getting there, you're going to be out in the open yourself.
because ideally he would be up on that hill in the cemetery with the high ground, and anybody coming to get him would have to run through an open rice paddy, being an easy target. But now it's working against him because he's the one that has to run through an open rice paddy, being an easy target. But the enemy's closing in and he doesn't really have a choice, so he takes off running through the open through 6-inch water in this rice paddy, makes it a couple hundred yards, and then takes a bullet to the leg, collapses. He immediately gathers whatever composure he can and starts crawling on all fours over to the side of the rice paddy where there's this big irrigation berm. And he crawls up the side. He's got a little bit of concealment as he looks back and sees that there's over 30 of his men dead in this rice paddy behind him. At this point, everything's gone to shit. There's nothing he can do except try to survive. So he just keeps crawling down the side of this berm. He makes it another couple hundred feet, and then he sees this big man-dug hole. He doesn't know if it's a tunnel. He doesn't know what it's even there for, but he decides he's going to crawl in there and try to hide. It's his best shot. So he pulls himself over the edge and falls into this hole or tunnel opening or whatever the hell it is, and there's so much water and it's so muddy, he's immediately just stuck inside this mud and can't dig himself out. But it's dark. Maybe he can cover himself in the mud and hide here and wait till tomorrow and then make a clean getaway somehow. And as he's in there in this hole, he just hears heavy, labored breathing. So he starts fighting his way through this mud, working his way deeper into this hole, and then turns a little bend and comes face to face with a water buffalo, shits his pants, pulls his knife out immediately, and then realizes this water buffalo's stuck too, and it's blocking the rest of the way. As soon as that happens, Billy hears somebody else jump down in the hole behind him. He whips around, and it's the CIA guy, and the CIA guy's like, they know we're here, we gotta go. Billy, thinking fast, realizes, no, you have to go. I'm stuck in this mud. Don't wait for me. Get out of this hole, get up to that hill, get the comm equipment, and call in an airstrike. It's the only chance we've got. CIA guy hops back out the hole. He takes off. Billy fights his way out of this mud over the course of the next couple minutes, pulls himself out of the hole, starts crawling towards this cemetery again, and immediately gets hit with another bullet. This time he gets hit in the foot. Billy looks down. His foot is just shredded. It's hamburger meat. He can literally see his bones sticking out the side of his boot. Immediately
out the side of his boot. We got 40 minutes. We got 50 minutes left. Oh.
Billy thinks to himself, fuck, that's the end of my military career. Not, I'm gonna die, not, this is the end. Hasn't given up on making it out of this situation yet. He's such a badass. His only concern is, I'm not gonna be able to jump out of planes with nuclear bombs strapped to me anymore after this. So he reaches down into his bag, pulls out his little aid kit, pulls out all 3 morphine syrettes that he has, hits himself with all 3 doses of morphine, waits for a couple seconds, feels a warm, tingly feeling go over him, but that's it. He still has excruciating pain, at which point he realizes, I'm really fucked up. A couple of seconds later, a bunch of American planes come screeching by, dropping bombs and napalm on the wood line that the enemy's inside of, at which point Billy's like, okay, I still got a chance, and he keeps crawling towards the cemetery. Billy's crawling for a couple of minutes, and then all of a sudden, everything goes black. Punching through the blackness, Billy can hear a helicopter off in the distance. Billy wakes up, head pounding, still in excruciating pain, feels his head. He's got a big gash and a nice dent in his forehead where a chunk of bone is missing. What the fuck happened?
Yeah.
Oh shit, the sun was over there and now it's over there. How much time has passed? He looks at his watch. His watch is gone, and then he's like, oh shit, I was wearing sleeves. Where are my sleeves? He looks down. He is butt-ass naked on the side of this berm, covered in mud that is now baked to his skin. He has no idea what actually happened. His best guess is that he caught a ricochet round to the head, knocked him unconscious, and then the NVA found him, assumed he was dead because how fucked up he was, stripped him of his clothes, stole his Rolex, and left him. So the helicopter lands. They pick Billy up.
Friggin' A. Oh, good. Of all the assumptions that could have been made, like, he's lucky that they didn't decide, you know what? Oh, you know what? American. We don't like American. We're gonna shoot you again just for fun. Pop. And then killing him in the process.
He finds out that himself and 15 other men were the only ones to survive. The medics start working on him, giving him medication. He passes back out, and for an unknown amount of time, he's just in and out of consciousness. He's in an aid station, then he's in a hospital. He vaguely remembers General Westmoreland visiting him at his bed and giving him his 6th Purple Heart and a Silver Star for Valor. And the next thing he knows, he's back in America in a hospital for the first time in 5 years. So when he really comes around, he's at Walter Reed Medical Center. He figures out everything that happened to him, and while he was in the rice paddy and down in the mud and getting baked in the sun, leeches had made their way into a lot of his wounds, and he had deep infections inside of his leg, and they were talking about amputating his entire leg.
Whoa, no touchy. No touchy.
No touch.
He absolutely doesn't
Yeah.
want to lose his leg for obvious reasons, on top of the fact that he still has an aspiration of being able to remain in the military and continue being an operator. So he's begging the doctors, don't amputate it, just keep giving me penicillin. And this goes on for like 3 months and the infection still won't heal. By this point, he's up, he's moving around, he's all together, but he still just has this nasty infection in his leg, at which point he asks the doctor, like, hey, just give me the antibiotics, let me go home on leave for a couple of days, I'll heal up there, leave the cast on, do whatever. So the doctor's like, okay, they give him penicillin, they slap a new cast on, they send him on his way for leave. Rather than going back home to Texas, Billy finds the nearest flight that he can and makes his way back to Saigon. So Billy gets to Vietnam, meets up with some of his Green Beret buddies, they're drinking at a bar, they're telling him that they're part of this new unit that they just started called the Studies and Observation Group, aka SOG. Billy gets filled in on the scope of what this new MACV SOG unit's supposed to be doing. Basically, they're going into Laos, Cambodia, North Vietnam, and they're conducting guerrilla warfare against the Viet Cong and the NVA. These are all
Okay, so this dude's still got an infection, a major infection, decides to go back anyways. Holy crap.
areas where the American military is not supposed to be, so they will not be in
Badass.
uniform. If anything goes wrong or sideways, nobody's coming to rescue them. It is extremely
like
dangerous
WWE
missions. MACV SOG does a ton of different things during the Vietnam conflict, but to give you an idea of what these guys are doing, you have missions like Operation Eldest Son. Basically, the NVA is using Laos and Cambodia as the neutral territory where they're not supposed to be able to smuggle supplies deep down into South Vietnam so that the Viet Cong have resupply, and that's what's keeping the war going on that front. So MACV SOG during Operation Eldest Son goes into these territories that they're also not supposed to be, essentially waging a shadow war. They track down where the NVA are and where they're leaving all these weapons caches for the Viet Cong, and then rather than just destroy it so they know they're there, they decide to be sneaky and they go into these weapons caches and swap out a bunch of the weapons, equipment, and ammunition with faulty weapons, equipment, and ammunition, with the goal being to harbor distrust and demoralize the Viet Cong, because it's pretty hard to wage a war when you go to reload with all the bullets the NVA gave you and then suddenly your gun jams or it blows up in your face because the Americans swapped it out with faulty ammo.
I don't know what a Vietnamese accent sounds like, by the way, so I'll just stick it. Or what the names of Vietnamese names are like. So, yo, why you give me faulty ammo? It almost blow up in my face. I'm gonna kick your ass.
And if you want to see what that looks like, my friends Adam and Bryce over at the Ballistic High Speed channel actually did an entire video on Operation Eldest Son where they actually tested this faulty ammunition to see what it would look like in super slow-mo. I'll throw up a clip here now, but they have a full video over on their channel. After hearing this, Billy said, and I quote, "I hadn't felt this sure of anything since I joined the Special Forces in Germany in 1953. Wounds or no wounds, infection or no infection, limp or no limp, I simply had to be in this unit. There was no doubt about it." So Billy goes back to America, goes back to Walter Reed, ends up defeating that infection over the course of the next couple of months, saves his leg, and then puts in a request for transfer to this new MACV SOG unit. They absolutely don't want to put him in this unit. At this point, Billy's 38 years old, almost lost his leg. He's still walking with a limp, but according to him, he lied, conned, and connived his way into that unit and ends up becoming the SOG airborne coordinator because he does have a ton of experience and he would still be a useful asset, maybe if not in the field, still in the mental game. Billy takes that job because he knows it's going to get him one step closer to getting back to combat. Over the course of the next 8 months as airborne coordinator, he oversees 5 MACV SOG teams that conduct 48 cross-border top secret missions.
There's a lot. Hunting a general.
June 1967, Billy gets called into SOG headquarters in Quezon and he gets briefed on a new mission. A mission that was so important, they were going to shut down all the airspace over Vietnam and there weren't going to be any aircrafts in the air that weren't directly involved in this mission. As far as the US government is concerned, this is the most important mission on the planet. And as the briefing continues, Billy finds out why this mission is so important because US intelligence has found out that the NVA's top general, General Giap, is going to be at a secret NVA base inside of Laos, which is a neutral territory, and this is going to be one of, if not their only chance to take him out. Taking out General Giap would be a humongous blow to the NVA morale. He is the heart and soul of that entire military. Ho Chi Minh is like the political leader. He's like the president. This is the equivalent to like Patton in World War II to America. He's literally nicknamed the Communist Napoleon and the Red Rommel. If they can take him out, they could literally end the entire war right now.
The Communist Napoleon. In other words, somebody needs to be taken out because commies kick him.
The problem is that the secret NVA base in Laos, codenamed Oscar 8, is a defender's dream. It is geographically perfect, making an assault on land basically impossible. So this is going to have to be an air assault mission, which isn't ideal because, as I'm sure you can imagine, trying to land a helicopter full of troops onto a fortified enemy base isn't a good idea either, but it's the best one we've got. So the plan is they're going to send in a bunch of B-52s.
Yikes.
They're going to drop 945 bombs on this base, and then as soon as that bombing run is done, 2 Marine helicopter gunships are going to come in and do strafing runs on the base. From there, we're going to bring in the transport helicopters with like 50 SOG guys in one big
This is in
hatchet
Laos.
force. And they're going to be supported overhead by F-4 Phantoms and Sky Raiders. And once these guys draw all the attention, we're going to send in 2 more helicopters on the other side of the base with 2 9-man SOG teams. And their entire objective is to figure out where they're hiding General Giap and take him out. And while all this is going on, Billy, the airborne coordinator for SOG, is going to be up above Oscar 8 in a little tiny Cessna plane, being the eyes in the sky for the men on the ground and reporting back to
extra
base.
surveillance.
The next morning at 6 a.m., Billy is already up over Oscar 8 doing laps around it, getting a lay of the land, and 9 B-52s take off as they make their way over to Oscar 8 to do their bombing run. Billy's watching as the B-52s approach, and he sees the enemy uncover all of their anti-aircraft guns that are on the ridge overlooking Oscar 8 that they did not know were there. The anti-aircraft guns open up on the B-52s, but the B-52s are so high they barely even notice, continue their bombing run as planned, dropping 945 bombs directly on top of this base. But Billy is still having his oh fuck moment because while it's not a problem for the B-52s, it is absolutely going to be a problem for the helicopters that are coming in much lower than the B-52s were. And those helicopters are coming in like 2 minutes. So Billy gets on his radio, abort mission, abort, pull back now. Radio silence, nothing's going through. Billy's panicking, he's switching over to different channels, he's having the pilot of the airplane in front of him try to use his radio, nothing's getting through. At this point, Billy can literally do nothing but continue trying to get a radio message through as he watches in horror as the 2 Marine gunships approach, begin their strafing run, and both immediately get shot down. As soon as the gunships impact the ground, Billy can already see the transport helicopters coming with the hatchet forces, but the way that the planes crashed, they tucked themselves up inside the ridge, so those helicopter pilots that are coming in aren't going to be able to see the crash until it's too late. Billy's still trying to get through on radio, telling the hatchet forces not to land, but he can't get through, and they go to make their landing and both get shot down as well. And Billy is watching tens of men falling out of these helicopters as the helicopters plummet to the ground. From Billy's perspective, everything's moving in slow motion and fast forward all at the same time. He's watching men crawling out of burning helicopters as the 2 F-4 Phantoms come screeching by, traveling at Mach 2 and attempt to hit these anti-aircraft guns. One of them gets shot down as well. As the SOG hatchet forces continue exiting the helicopter,
Did they manage to take out any of those AA guns?
going into bomb craters, picking up defensive positions because they're completely surrounded by hundreds of NVA soldiers. Then the Sky Raiders show up and one of them is shot down as well. And then the hatchet forces are actually able to communicate with Billy via radio. They tell Billy they've got 25 men alive, but they're completely surrounded. As the pilot tells Billy, we're almost out of fuel. We have to turn back now or we're not going to make it. Billy tells the hatchet forces on the ground to hunker down. He's going to be back. As they make their way back to the airstrip, he finally reestablishes communication with headquarters and they don't know anything. Billy immediately fills in the chain of command. There's 2 downed gunships, 2 downed transport helicopters, a downed F-4, and a downed Sky Raider. He then gives them a description of where that ridge is with all the anti-aircraft guns, and they immediately send over planes to begin bombing that area. In addition to that, they also basically make a circle of bombs and napalm strikes around the surviving hatchet members, and just continue doing bombing run and napalm run after bombing run and napalm run, creating a wall of death protecting them. Billy makes his way back to the airstrip. The plane lands. He jumps out, runs, finds the best helicopter pilot they have, a guy by the name of Mustachio. They jump in a helicopter and take off, headed back to
comment on that.
Billy guides Mustachio to the different downed helicopters as that ridge line with the anti-aircraft guns is still getting absolutely bombarded, taking the plane down, picking up all the surviving members from these helicopter crews and bringing them back to the airstrip. By the time they make it back to the airstrip, the Cessna's been refueled and ready to go. Billy hops out of the helicopter, hops into the Cessna. They take off back to Oscar 8 again. The only surviving members on the ground are the members of the hatchet forces that are being pinned down by hundreds of NVA soldiers, but at least the anti-aircraft guns have been completely obliterated. By this point, Billy's overhead, but the sun's already going down and they're not going to be able to get helicopters on the ground in the dark with hundreds of enemy soldiers surrounding them. So the hatchet members are just going to have to fight all through the night as they call in C-130 Spectre gunships to give fire support. The Spectre gunships, the bombing runs, and the napalm runs continue to protect these guys all through the night while Billy is constantly flying overhead in his Cessna observing everything. everything. At first light the next day, they bring in 4 transport helicopters, landing them in the bomb craters next to the bomb crater that they're inside of, picking up the surviving Hatchet Force members. They get back to the airfield, they do a head count, and there's still 24 men that are missing in action. For the next 4 days,
Wow.
Billy and the rescue crews canvass the entire area looking for any sign of these men. So
To think about how sideways everything can go, just missing one important piece of information, like the fact that there were AA guns there. If they'd known there were AA guns there, they probably would have sent in another B-52 or two to focus on bombing where those anti-air guns were. So that would have made a massive difference in this operation here, but holy crap, how sideways things could go when you just miss one little... It's like that one, Burt Grumman? Burt Grumman? I want to say Burt Gomer. Grummer. The guy from... The Burt from, the Trimmer series. I was denied critical need-to-know information. That line.
they could go down and rescue him, and for days they don't see anything. And on the 4th day, as they're flying over, Billy spots a bright red rescue panel. They pivot, shift the plane to fly closer, and it's actually sitting on top of a SOG member's chest. As they get closer, the SOG member raises his arm, giving the thumbs up, and Billy marks the area, and they got to come back and get him. Billy immediately calls in a rescue helicopter, explaining that it is more than likely a trap, but they have to go in and save him anyways. He instructs the aircrew that this is going to be an extremely dangerous mission, and their best chance is to have one guy rappel out of the side of the helicopter to the ground with an extra harness, hook up this other member of the team that's injured, and pick them both up as they dangle from the helicopter and fly them out of the immediate area, find somewhere else to land to actually get them inside of the helicopter. And that's exactly what ends up happening. Luckily, while it was a trap, the NVA members, after the first 3 days, abandoned the idea and figured that they weren't going to come back and save this guy, and just left him to die out in this open field to the elements. So nobody actually attacked the helicopter, and they saved this SOG member. That's
so in other words, the guys got lazy, which, you know, in this case, good.
SOG member's name was Charles Wicklow, and he is the only SOG operator to ever be captured by the enemy and get to return home. This gave Billy hope that there might still be more men out there, and he continued to canvass that area for 5 more days, finding nothing, not even a trace.
Man.
February 2nd, 1970, Billy has fully recovered from his injuries. He's no longer walking with a limp, and he is ready to get back in the action at the age of 41 years old. Billy is told that he needs to report to his CO's office with all of his gear and alone. Billy is ecstatic because he knows that this means he's about to get orders to go do some gangster shit. The commanding officer then briefs Billy that inside Cambodia, there is a Cambodian military outpost that was heavily used by the NVA, and that's who was supplying them with absolutely everything, and in return, they were allowing the NVA to use it kind of as a way station. Intel says that the NVA hasn't been there in months. They basically abandoned the Cambodians there, and they have not received any supplies. A lot of them are starving and suffering from malaria and other diseases. So the chain of command wants Billy to lead a team to go in and see if he can potentially switch this Cambodian outpost from an NVA ally to an American ally. At which point Billy is like, just to be clear, you want me to go in deeper into enemy territory than anybody has ever been to, last we knew, enemies, and who knows, maybe they're gonna shoot me on sight, maybe I'll be welcomed, and see if they're willing to come over and play on our team. And he's like, yeah, that's pretty much it. At which point Billy is like, dope, I'm in, let's do this. So Billy goes, he grabs 2 more SOG guys, he grabs a commo specialist, a demolition man, and then he grabs an interpreter, and they take off in a helicopter into Cambodia. So they go in, they land the helicopter, Billy hops out, trying to make himself appear as though he's coming in peace, which he is. They're definitely not shooting at him yet, so that's a good sign right off the bat. People kind of start to gather around the helicopter, and then as the people start to gather around, the man in charge shows up, a elderly man that's known as Colonel Savut. He has very, very yellow jaundice eyes, a gunshot wound, and a big nasty scar on his head that's long since healed. Billy and him begin communicating through the interpreter, and the colonel basically tells him, like, yeah, I don't fucking like the NVA guys. They treated all my people like shit. They kind of just took all the supplies that they wanted, not caring how many supplies they left us. We've been starving and riddled with disease forever. And Billy is like, I can help with literally all of that. Goes over to the helicopter, opens up a case of just piss-warm Budweiser, hands the colonel one. He's pumped, pops the top, chugs the entire thing, and begins handing out Budweisers to all of his other officers.
Hey.
Bring you a beer. Sorry about you. Yeah.
Now, at this point, the colonel asked Billy, okay,
beer.
cool. If we work with you, how are you going to protect us? Because right now, the NVA is leaving us alone to basically starve and die of disease. But if they find out that we're working with you, they're going to come slaughter all of us.
Right.
Billy thought way
Wrong with
ahead,
that.
and he knew this
Good,
question would
good.
pop up. He already
What'd you
has
think?
F-4 Phantoms up in the air doing hot laps around their immediate area. So he goes over to the colonel and is like, I'll tell you what, point to anything off in the distance that you don't like. The colonel then points over to this small cluster of trees off in the distance that are kind of standing out on their own. Billy looks over at the commo guy and is like, send it. And within 60 seconds, the F-4 Phantoms screech by, dropping bombs right on top of the trees. All the Cambodian men start cheering, and the colonel's like, we're in. Billy immediately tells the helicopter crew they can return to where they came from, radios in, and tells them to just start sending in all of the supplies. American helicopters start showing up just one after another, bringing food,
Nice.
guns, medicine, medics,
That is a heck of a convincing argument. Like, okay, point to what you don't like. Okay, what's going to convince you? I don't like those trees. Okay. Hey, Phantom, get rid of those trees. Copy.
Constantina wire, everything they need to fortify this position, feed the people, and start treating malaria. The Cambodians are blown away by how much shit the Americans are bringing in and how fast it's coming in. They're basically going to have their own Burger King in the next 48 hours. It's American diplomacy done to perfection. You show up with guns, booze, and ham sandwiches and start handing them out. It doesn't matter who it is. When you gift them with the American trifecta of diplomacy, they're always like, you know what? This motherfucker's all right. The next day, Billy begins working and training these Cambodian soldiers, getting them ready to go up toe-to-toe with the NVA. And these guys, while they're not great soldiers yet, they're super enthusiastic because they've got food, they've got medicine, and they don't like the NVA because they treated them like shit.
Yeah,
to begin
finally,
with.
we don't
Within
get to
days,
die.
Billy's taking the Cambodians out and doing recon patrols, capturing and spying on NVA soldiers. Over this time, Billy and Colonel Savut end up becoming pretty good friends, and he ends up eventually getting to the point while they're drinking one night, like, okay, what the fuck happened to your forehead? Why do you got like a chunk of your skull missing? And he proceeds to tell Billy the story of how him and one of his best friends got in an argument over who was a better shot with a pistol. So naturally, they decided to have a competition to see who was in fact a better shot, and the way they decided to go about it was they were going to put a beer bottle on their head and let their friend shoot the beer bottle off the top of their head. Obviously. Colonel Savut apparently went first and shot the beer.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Beer bottle clean off his buddy's head, and then his buddy went second to see if he was just as good of a shot and proceeded to shoot Colonel Savut directly in the head. At which point Billy's blown away and he's like, I bet you're not friends with that guy anymore. And he's like, no, we're literally best friends to this day.
Sorry, I thought you were a deer.
At which point Billy's like, all right, I'm gonna go keep conducting raids now. Bye-bye. So SOG and the Cambodians continued to harass the NVA.
Okay, then.
And on March 1st, one of the SOG operatives that was leading a team of Cambodians actually gets injured in combat. Cambodians get this guy back to the base, and Billy has to get this guy out to a real hospital as soon as possible. So he hops on the radio and he sends out a transmission just trying to pick up any nearby friendly aircraft. Luckily enough, an American plane responds. He's like, hey, what's up? Billy's like, I've got a medevac going on right now. Can you help out with that? He's like, yeah, I'm just on a milk run. I'm delivering supplies, but I have standing orders that I can help with any medevac, period. Where are you? Now remember, Billy is inside of Cambodia. Good. Americans are not supposed to be inside of Cambodia at this point. This is all top secret shit. So Billy, not wanting to say I'm in Cambodia over the open radio waves, is like, I'm 32 kilometers directly west of Duck Ho, and Duck Ho is like right on the Vietnam-Cambodian border. And the pilot's like, dope, I'm on my way. Apparently not realizing that would put him well into Cambodia. So now the plane's on the way. Billy has all the Cambodians clearing a bunch of shit out of the way to make a makeshift runway for a plane. All the other stuff they've had come in so far has been on helicopters. Nobody's supposed to be landing planes here. But he's got a guy to save, and we've got to fucking figure it out. So they clear everything out. They get as big of a runway as they possibly can. This plane shows up, does a hot lap around it, scoping out the landing field, and the pilot messages back down like, how sturdy is that ground? This is a really short runway. And Billy's like, oh, it's sturdy. I checked it. So the pilot circles back around, lands the plane. The ground was not sturdy. He ends up sinking the tires, and the plane is now stuck in mud. The pilot gets out all pissed off, like, I thought you told me the ground was sturdy, and where the fuck even are we? At which point Billy's like, welcome to the Bakev International Airport. And the pilot's like, Bakev's in Cambodia. And Billy's like, uh-huh. And this dude just immediately starts shitting his pants. Like, he's not supposed to be in Cambodia. He's thinking like he is now part of an international incident because he just downed a plane, and it is now stuck in the mud in a country he's not even supposed to be in.
Did you know?
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yes.
Worth mentioning, the plane that he landed was a C-123 Provider. It's a fucking cargo plane, okay? This is not a small aircraft. But Billy's
Oh,
basically
no,
like,
not
okay,
small
chill,
any-
just what do you
at
need
all.
to get this plane up off the ground? And the pilot's like, well, first, we're going to have to undig it out of the mud. We're going to have to pull it back to that tree line to give me as much runway as possible, and that's still not going to be enough runway to clear the other tree line on the other end of it. At which point, the pilot's like, I'm going to need J-tow bottles to get this plane off the ground before I have to hit those trees. If you don't know, J-tow bottles are jet takeoff bottles. They're literally jets that you can strap to the side of a plane to get it more speed right out of the gate to generate more
I've
lift
never
to
heard
get
of
the
that.
plane off the ground on a shorter runway. And the pilot is shitting his pants because obviously you're not going to be able to get J-tow bottles inside of Cambodia, but Billy isn't worried about it at all. Hops on the radio. He's Billy Waugh. They're going to give him whatever the fuck he wants, no questions asked. The J-tow bottles
Reputation
show up,
comes with
and
a
then
lot
they
of perks.
strap that to the plane. The plane takes off, gets in the air. Crisis averted. The dude's getting sent to the hospital. Hooray. Once the plane gets up in the air, Billy Waugh radios to the pilot one last time like, hey, thanks for the help, at which point the pilot replies, Sergeant Major, don't ever fucking call me again. And he leaves. Shortly after this, Billy receives intel that the MDA are building up a massive force of troops, and he is the obvious target that they are coming to take out because they are sick of him harassing them. This tells Billy his work here is done. He then proceeds to evac himself, all the Americans, and then every Cambodian man, woman, and child that were living at that outpost into southern Vietnam, and lets the government take over from there.
Retirement.
All right, 1971. At this point during the Vietnam War,
We still got 30 minutes to go. Like, how crazy is this man's retirement?
losses are becoming insurmountable. They're losing so many men and so many helicopters in helicopter crashes. Helicopters getting shot down. They need to figure out a different way to get soldiers onto the battlefield in the right location, deep in enemy territory, that doesn't rely on helicopters. And Billy Waugh is one of the main dudes helping to pioneer this new strategy. And this eventually evolves into what we know today as halo jumping, high altitude, low opening. And what that means is it's different than normal airborne operations, right? When you see a normal airborne operation, you see that when the soldier jumps out of the plane, he then has a rope that's connected to his parachute, and once that rope reaches its end, it automatically pulls the parachute open for him, and then he drifts to the ground. Halo jumping is exactly what it sounds like. The plane is going to be much higher at a higher altitude.
Yeah, Godzilla 2014.
And then you're going to free fall without a static line. You're going to keep track of your own altitude, and then you're going to pull your parachute at the last possible minute to get it open and keep you from splattering all over the ground. And this is still the
timing
technique that's
is a
used
big
by
thing.
special forces to this day to get somebody deep into enemy territory unnoticed. And not only does Billy help pioneer this technique, he is the first man to ever halo jump into combat on November 28th, 1970, when he jumped into Laos. From there, Billy is in theater conducting multiple halo jump operations until SOG is eventually disbanded on May 1st, 1972. SOG ends up getting disbanded because obviously back home, the Vietnam War as a whole is very unpopular. Dealing with that unpopularity back home, a lot of the people in the conventional side of the military like to blame all the special forces guys for always getting them into deep shit, so it led to a lot of hostility on special forces in general, which is the catalyst that led to SOG getting disbanded. By December of 1972, America launches Operation Linebacker 2, which is a massive bombing campaign on the North Vietnamese.
Damn hippies.
And they continue to bomb them pretty much all day and all night for about 11 days straight, dropping 20 tons of bombs on the enemy. In order to get that to stop, the NDA agreed to come to the negotiating table, and by January of 1973, the Paris Peace Accords have been signed, officially bringing an end to the Vietnam War. The Paris Peace Accords essentially said that both sides of the war would stop military activity in neutral territories like Laos and Cambodia, even though neither of them were actually there, allegedly.
Of course.
After America leaves, the North and South Vietnamese will come to a peaceful agreement amongst themselves. It didn't really work out that way, but that was how it was supposed to happen. Billy is super pissed off. He wants to keep fighting and win this war, but that's just not in the cards, and he's so pissed off that he basically tells his chain of command, okay, I'm 43 years old, I'm just gonna retire. The chain of command reluctantly agrees, and because he's Billy Waugh, he's a tier 1 operator, dude is a living legend at this point. They ask him, is there anything special you want to do for your retirement? And he thinks about it for a second. He's like, yeah, I want to halo jump into the parade field at Fort Bragg with some of my best friends, and then after we land, I want to dump our parachutes, take the rest of the day off, and get fucking hammered right there on that spot. And that's exactly what he does. And with that, Billy Waugh's legendary military career officially comes to an end. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the beginning of the story.
Friggin'. I was about to say, wait a minute, we got almost 30 minutes left. What? No. Well, he did mention that he went Nick mentioned he went after Osama bin Laden at one point, so it's like, oh, shit.
So the legendary Billy Waugh goes into retirement. He goes back home to Texas, and from there, he doesn't really know what to do. He's legitimately spent more time in combat operation as an adult than he has in the United States of America. So he just does what a lot of veterans do, and he gets a job being a mailman. He works that job every day for 5 years. And
surprising how many of the U.S. vets after World War II that Nick's covered that end up being mailmen. Like, if I'm remembering correctly, wasn't Jake McNasty a mailman? Wasn't who all became a mailman? There were multiple, though. There were multiple people he's covered that's been mailmen.
he absolutely hates every fucking second of it. In his own words, Billy Waugh said, and I quote, "Let's face it, for a person like me, post office work was worse than death. I do not ever recall feeling fear, not up till that moment in my life. Not in combat before, not anywhere since. But there in that post office, I feared my life was over, that I would wind up some old man drinking at the end of a bar."
Stop trying to scare us.
And then after 5 long years,
Meanwhile,
his
Jake
phone
McNair
rings on just some random day of the week, and on the other end of the line is a voice that he recognizes from his military career, but he's not exactly sure where. And that voice asks him, "Are you ready to get back in action?" And 48-year-old Billy Waugh immediately says, "Yes." The voice on the other end of the line then tells Billy, "Okay, I'll have a down payment wired into your bank account. I need you to report in 48 hours to this specific hotel at 3 p.m. that exact time. Pack enough clothes for a year. You're going overseas for at least 6 months, but potentially much longer." Next morning, Billy goes to the post office, immediately quits his job, heads over to the bank, checks his bank account. He has twice his annual salary deposited into his account.
Wow.
At the same time, there's 3 other guys there checking in at the exact same time. He gets to talking to them. They're there for the same exact thing. There's a communications guy, there's a handheld weapons instructor, there's a medic, and then there's Billy, an expert in literally everything else. At this point, Billy's thinking this is some CIA operation. Awesome, I'm in. They wait for the 5th guy to show up. The 5th guy shows up, and he is the lawyer of the client that they are now working for. The lawyer then informs them they are all going to be going to Libya, where they're going to be training men and consulting for Muammar Gaddafi. At this point, alarm bells are going off in Billy's head. This is definitely not a CIA operation. The CIA is against Gaddafi at this point. He's sponsoring terrorism all over the world. America is not trying to help this guy out. Who the fuck are these people? Why do they want Billy to go help this guy? This is not a state-funded operation. So Billy starts asking questions. He's assured by the lawyer that everything is above board. They're not doing anything illegal. Billy asks who the client is, and the client is Edwin P. Wilson, a former CIA operative. This guy was later put on trial for illegally running guns to Libya and other hostile governments to America. During those trials, multiple key witnesses that were testifying against him mysteriously wound up dead. One guy died in a bar fight. Another guy died in a boating accident when his boat mysteriously exploded. So Billy, not buying that this was all above board, makes some calls to his contacts at the CIA, and the CIA is like, "Yeah, we don't have any operations going on in Libya right now. What the fuck are you talking about?" Then Billy gets a return call from some voice he doesn't recognize, some guy he doesn't know, that asks him to meet up at a restaurant in Arlington, and Billy agrees. He goes there. The guy identifies himself as working for the CIA, shows his badge, shows all his credentials. Billy's satisfied that this guy does in fact work for the CIA. Pat, the CIA guy, then explains the whole situation, that this is not a CIA-funded operation, but the CIA would like Billy to work for them. The CIA is keeping an eye not only on Gaddafi, but on Edwin P. Wilson as well, and they want Billy to go in and be their eyes and ears on the ground. He also gives Billy a camera and tells him to take pictures of any sensitive military equipment that he comes across going to all the bases in Libya. Billy then goes and does that for 2 years, constantly reporting back intel and pictures to the CIA, giving them information that would eventually lead up to Edwin P. Wilson getting convicted. The bad news, when your boss gets convicted, you're out of a job, but the good news is Billy is now in good standing as an independent contractor for the CIA. From here, Billy falls off the grid for the next, like, 10 years doing
In other words, hey, we're going to pay you to do some stuff that's going to be a little crazy. You can't talk about it, but you're going to have fun. I'm in.
God knows what for the CIA, it's all redacted.
Here's the big one.
So the next time we know what Billy's actually up to is in 1991, when at the age of 63, he is sent to Khartoum, Sudan, aka K-Town. Now, K-Town in the 1990s is basically Mos Eisley from Star Wars.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Simply put, this is the real world location where all the Bond villains hang out. And one of the new up-and-comers is a religious fanatic that's forming a new terrorist organization known as Al-Qaeda, and that guy's name is Osama bin Laden. Also worth mentioning, inside the CIA, nobody wants this job working in K-Town because it's in Sudan, it's hot as fuck, it's super dangerous, and if you're a white guy, you stick out like a sore thumb.
Joke's on you, I'm into that shit.
On top of that, because nobody else wants this job, that means Billy's gonna be hard to replace, meaning he basically is gonna be able to do whatever the fuck he wants, how he wants to do it, and nobody's gonna get too mad at him because they don't want to have to fire and find somebody else to do this job. Which comes into play right away because the CIA wants to know what Billy's plan is, and Billy's just like, what do you mean? I'm just gonna go in there and I'm gonna keep an eye on the guy. But the CIA is like, but how? How are you gonna keep an eye on the guy? And Billy's like, I'm gonna do all the obvious shit. Whenever he leaves in a car, I'm gonna follow him in my car. I'm gonna take pictures of him all the time.
Do what I'm supposed to do.
I'll find another building that overlooks his building and keep tabs on him. And then every morning and evening, I'm gonna get in athletic wear and I'm gonna jog around his compound and around the general area so everybody just sees me as that old man that's running for his health. And the office nerds at the CIA are like, yeah, but you're an elderly white man. You'll stick out like a sore thumb. And he goes, yeah, that's kind of the point. That a lot of people in the Sudan see Americans as doing stupid shit. And to them, jogging is stupid shit. Okay, it's Sudan. This is Africa in the 1990s. Okay, the notion that Americans eat so much food so often that they then have to go outside and run around for no reason other than to not be fat is so unfathomably dumb to these people. It makes perfect sense and nobody will bat an eye when they see a white elderly man jogging around. But naturally, the office nerds over at the CIA are like, well, we don't really think that's a good idea. I know that you think that based on, I don't know, your previous 40 years of experience of operating, probably been doing it longer than I've been alive, but I don't think that's a good idea. Instead, what you should do is wear a disguise. So the CIA went out and hired a Hollywood prop house to make Billy a rubber disguise. So they give this mask to Billy. This mask is like from here up so that the neck and face match for skin tone, and he has gloves as well. And since he's in Africa, he is now going to be portraying a black man. And Billy is like blackface. You want me to do blackface while I spy on a terrorist?
I don't believe you people.
What do you mean, you people?
What do you mean, you people?
And Billy doesn't really care about that. Like, it's a military operation. We all know the rules. It's not actually blackface if you're working for the U.S. government.
Blackface is wrong.
Hey, I was just about to say.
You cannot do it, okay? Then you see them Navy SEALs commercials. You're like, all right, well, kind of sometimes you could do it. Right? The whole Navy SEALs commercial is like, look how cool blackface is on a helicopter.
The real problem is the mask is absolutely ridiculous. When you put a mask over your head, obviously your head is now disproportionately large. The lips don't actually move. And Billy said a combination between the mask just being disproportionately large for his head and the over-exaggerated features of the mask, the lips of the mask were so large that when he drove his car, he had to turn his head down so that he could actually see where the fuck he was going. So he's driving around town like this all day. And the worst part, it's Sudan. It's 120 degrees there and nobody has air conditioning, and he's wearing a rubber helmet and rubber gloves 24/7. It fucking sucks. He's sweating his ass off the entire time, and he's a 63-year-old man. But you know what? Fuck it. If that's what the CIA wants, that's what the CIA is gonna get. Billy does just that.
I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
So this goes on for a little while, and then one of the CIA office nerds comes out to check on Billy, and Billy is like, haha, time to put your mask on, homie. And we've all had this moment, you know, where the boss comes down from his office at work and he's been making everybody do stupid shit, and it's finally his turn to experience how dumb what they're making you do actually is. So the CIA office guy gets his rubber mask and his rubber gloves, puts it on, and hops in the car with Billy. And this is Africa. There's no traffic laws. Billy's weaving in and out of traffic, driving like a bat out of hell. The CIA guy's already getting nervous just from how he's driving. The CIA guy looks down. There's a big-ass hole in the floor of the car because Billy's driving some 15-year-old beat-up Toyota. They roll up on a military checkpoint that they obviously have to stop at to not get shot. Billy stops the car. Dude walks right up, shoves his AK right into Billy's window. Billy's completely chill. This is just day-to-day shit for him. CIA office guy shitting his pants. And when you get within, like, I don't know, 6 feet of somebody wearing one of these masks, it's very obvious to everybody that you are in fact wearing a mask, so they're about to get caught. But Billy just like bribes the guy with money and cigarettes, per usual, daily thing for him. They let him pass right through. But the CIA guy is like having a panic attack while he's inside of this rubber mask in 120-degree weather, thinking he's gonna get killed in Sudan.
Mr. Ford, you all right?
I had no idea.
All that combined with
I had
Billy
no
continuing
idea.
to drive like a bat out of hell, he ends up getting his CIA handler to puke inside of this rubber mask and is just like, can't take it off, man. We don't want to blow our cover, right? So he just lets this dude bake inside this rubber mask with his own vomit in 120-degree desert heat. So Billy continues, shows him everything he needs to see. This dude's just having the worst time of his life. Takes him back, drops him off. And yeah, Billy didn't have to wear the mask after that anymore.
Good.
So now Billy gets to do this job the way he actually wants to do it. And he proceeds to just be a stone cold gangster about it the entire time, right? He's a 63-year-old man that's been operating for 40 years. He doesn't give a fuck about anything. He's jogging around bin Laden's compound every single morning. He says he gets within like 10 feet of them on multiple occasions, almost weekly at this point. He's tailing their cars wherever they go. Bin Laden's got like 10 bodyguards with him at all times. At one point, Billy's tailing bin Laden's Mercedes in his car, and as he's following, one of the guards in the back seat turns around and notices Billy is right behind him and lifts up his AK and points it at him. Billy doesn't even flinch, is just sitting there at this stoplight or stop sign, grabs a fake air grenade and just motions, pulling the pin with his teeth and throwing it at him, like literally just telling the dude, go ahead, shoot me, fucking see what happens.
Us, your home, your family. Gone.
And guess what Osama bin Laden's bodyguard does?
Not a damn thing.
Reflecting
Not a damn thing.
later in life.
Not a damn thing.
Billy said, and I quote, "My attitude with these guys was always very simple. Fuck them. My guns are just as good as theirs." This might be the most badass old man to exist ever. So Billy continues to basically overtly spy on these guys, and he ends up getting an apartment building that overlooks Osama bin Laden's compound. And then he just spends a ton of time hanging out on the roof, overlooking, taking pictures, looking at him with binoculars and all kinds of shit. And again, it doesn't seem that irregular because everybody in Sudan just kind of hangs out on their roof because there's no air conditioning and it's cool up there with the wind. So he's just sitting up on top of the roof in the middle of the desert under some shade, spying on Osama bin Laden. And over time, he starts to realize just how insanely devoted all of these guys' followers are. This guy's not just a leader, he is a spiritual leader. These people believe that if they do what he's saying, they're going to get to go to heaven, and he recognizes that that is extremely dangerous. Now remember, this is 1991, and at this point, Osama bin Laden is not what he eventually turns into yet, but Billy sees all the potential and, more importantly, all the intent there, so he comes to the conclusion, we should just kill this guy and be done with it. So Billy ends up writing a mission proposal. He knows absolutely everything about Osama bin Laden at this point. He knows when he wakes up, he knows when he goes to bed, he knows when he eats breakfast, he knows when he prays.
Let me guess. The CIA said no, because he could be a useful asset to us. Guaranteed.
He knows when he's getting into his car, and he knows where he's running his errands inside of that car. He knows absolutely everything about this guy's daily routine. So Billy wants to get one more CIA guy and one more car. So it's going to be Billy, his car, a CIA guy, and another car. And what's going to happen is the CIA guy is going to get in a head-on collision with Osama bin Laden's car, and then Billy's going to pull up right behind him. And then when Osama bin Laden and all his bodyguards get out to start yelling because he caused a car wreck, Billy's going to come up behind him and just shoot everybody in the head. Okay, it's a good plan. 2 guys, 2 cars, 1 suppressed MP5, grab Osama bin Laden's dead corpse, throw it in the trunk, drive to the Iranian embassy, throw it over the wall with a couple of flashbang grenades to get everybody's attention, get a ton of news coverage all over it, and then walk away. This proposal makes it all the way to the desk of President Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton sends a response back to the CIA. I'm paraphrasing, but it basically said, we're not doing this. Please don't recommend anything like this ever again. At that point, it becomes clear that the CIA is not actually going to be allowed to do anything about this guy, so Billy's pulled off the mission, and Osama bin Laden is just kind of left alone to do whatever he's going to do. Later in life, Billy reflected on this, and with hindsight being 2020, he said that if he would have known that bin Laden was going to go on to launch terror attacks at multiple U.S. embassies, the USS Cole, and the World Trade Center, he absolutely would have went rogue and taken him out himself. He had every opportunity in the world at the time.
So if we didn't have yet another retard for a president, then we could have ended a major threat before it became a major threat and cost the lives of thousands of people one September morning. No, we don't want to do that. That's too hard. That might cause problems. Fuck you.
All right, 1993, Billy gets called in for a top secret gamma level mission. I didn't know what gamma level mission meant. Apparently it just means like super duper top secret. International intelligence organizations have picked up a phone call that Carlos the Jackal wants a new bodyguard and is being sent one. Now, if you don't know, in 1993, Carlos the Jackal is the most notorious terrorist of all time. He's conducted pretty much every flavor of terrorism that there is, from bombings to shootings, assassinations, hostage situations, all of them, and he's done it all over the world. So pretty much every first world country wants to get a hold of this guy. The problem is that he's been off the grid for like a decade, and a lot of people actually believe that he's dead. So in order to take down Carlos the Jackal, they're going to have to go in and prove that he's actually even alive. And in order to do that, they're going to have to get up close and personal with a camera to get a clear picture. So in order to do that, they call up the best of the best, 65-year-old Billy Waugh. So they bring Billy in, they brief him, they tell him when and where the security guard is supposed to show up, and surprise, surprise, it's Billy's favorite place, Khartoum, Sudan. So Billy gets into Khartoum, Sudan. He's leading a four-man surveillance team, and they are tasked with hunting down Carlos the Jackal. They show up at the airport that the bodyguard is flying into, pretending to be businessmen having lunch, and then as they identify the bodyguard, they start following him. He goes out into the parking lot, gets in a white Toyota, they're tailing the guy, they tail him for like 45 minutes, and then suddenly he just does a U-turn. So they do a U-turn and they follow him, and then he goes for a little bit longer, does another U-turn, at which point they know that he knows that they're following him, and they can't keep following him because this guy's just going to do U-turns all day long. So they break contact and go back to the U.S. Embassy. So now the only lead that they have is that they're looking for this white Toyota. So they're constantly all just driving around the city for weeks trying to find this white Toyota again. And then one day they find the car right outside this clinic. They presume because Carlos the Jackal is getting up there in age and he has a lot of health issues that he's inside the clinic getting treatment for something. Now the problem is right outside this clinic is this open air market where people are just selling shit, food, vegetables, whatever. So there's a bunch of people walking by all over the place. And you have to remember, this is 1993. They don't have the super nice cameras that we had today. They don't have little tiny cameras with all this awesome auto-focusing that's going to be able to get a clear picture. It's going to take a skilled photographer, which Billy is, to be able to get this picture, but they're going to have to get Carlos the Jackal to...
First of all, that pause face, which I shouldn't be surprised that Billy's a good photographer. All the other stuff that all the other accomplishments, tripping over my words, all of the other accomplishments this man has gone through, you know, I shouldn't be surprised that he can, oh, you want a good picture? Okay, hold still.
Stand still in this marketplace without people in the way. Now Billy sees the Jackal and his bodyguards starting to walk out of this clinic, and if he can't get them to stop and stand still for a minute with a clear shot with his camera, he's not going to be able to get a picture to prove the guy's alive to get the green light to capture him. So he needs to figure out how to get Carlos the Jackal to stand still for a minute without drawing any attention to himself so that he doesn't realize that he's being hunted and run off. So Billy's thinking fast. Okay, got to get Carlos the Jackal to stand still. How do I get somebody to stand still? I get him to look at something. Okay, middle-aged guy, alcohol, womanizer. What's he want to look at? Tits. Don't have any tits. Okay, next best idea. A fight. I got to start a fight. He looks over to his partner, Greg. Instigate a fight right now.
Yo, hit that director in the face. Really hard.
Sorry, man.
So Greg, the CIA guy, immediately goes up to one of the vendors, starts screaming, "You cheated me, you cheated me," instigates this fight. Obviously, everybody in the surrounding area starts looking because that's just what you do when a fight breaks out, including Carlos the Jackal, and this gets him to stand still long enough for Billy to get a ton of up-close, personal, clear pictures of Carlos the Jackal. After Billy gives Greg the signal that he has the pictures that he needs, Greg apologizes, pulls out money, hands it to the vendor. No big deal, everything's fine. They then tail Carlos the Jackal all the way back to the shitty apartment building that he's held up in. But they can't do anything yet. They have to verify that it's him, but at least now they know where he's at. So they go back to the embassy. Billy develops the pictures, has them sent over to CIA headquarters. CIA says, yeah, that's absolutely him, gives Billy the green light to go get him. So Billy goes to the apartment complex, finds a manager, comes up with some bullshit story that he's working for the US government as like a surveyor for urban development, blah, 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 whatever. The manager immediately knows he's full of shit and basically, you know, cut to the chase. How much money are you going to bribe me? I want like $700 a month US is what he says, which doesn't seem like a lot of money to us for what we're asking. However, in Sudan, the annual income is about $300 a year. So to him, this is a shit ton of money.
$1 million.
Billy's over here with U.S. military DOD fuck you money budget, immediately gives the guy $700. The guy hooks him up with an apartment right above Carlos the Jackal, and Billy gets in there with a bunch of surveillance equipment and starts spying on him. All the intel that Billy finds, Billy kicks back to his bosses at the CIA, and then they share it with all the other international intelligence community. And what ends up happening, allegedly, as far as the story goes, is that the French government really wanted to be the ones to capture the Jackal. So from this point, allegedly, a French team comes in and takes over using all of Billy's intel, but how much the CIA was actually involved is still classified, so who actually knows? So while we don't know who actually caught him, we do know how he was caught. And what Billy found out while he was surveilling the guy was that he had a toothache. So what they did is they found a dentist nearby, paid him off to actually call Carlos the Jackal, saying they were opening up a new dental clinic and that they were looking for new customers and they were offering free checkups and repairs. Carlos the Jackal, the guy with the toothache, is like, dope, I'm gonna go get this fixed. Carlos the Jackal, at this point in time, the most notorious terrorist ever that's been on the run for over a decade, considered by many to be absolutely dead. Billy Waugh goes in and captures his ass in a matter of weeks in what is probably the cleanest operation ever. After capturing Carlos the Jackal, Billy continues to work for the CIA well into his old age, doing God knows what. We don't really know because it's still classified. The next time Billy pops up is in 2001 when he is 71 years old, right after the attack on the World Trade Center. Billy said, and I quote, "On the morning of September 11, I was stunned and angry and determined to place myself in a position to do something about it. I was 71 years old when those towers fell, but I didn't give a good goddamn how old I was. My country was going to war, and for nearly 50 years, that meant only one thing: I needed to get myself involved in this war also." Most people at 71 years old want to avoid staircases, and Billy Waugh at 71 wants to go to war like a complete fucking gangster. So Billy shows up to CIA headquarters ready to go to work, and they're assembling teams to ship out to the Middle East, and Billy is not getting selected. He's told that he's not going to be going, most likely because he's 71 years old.
Yeah,
so
he is up there in age.
He goes out to his car, opens up his trunk, and grabs out this shitty folding beach chair and walks right back into CIA headquarters. This whole place is buzzing. It's right after 9/11. Everybody's running around, sharing information, and here's Billy, a 71-year-old man in a beach chair, sitting in the middle of the office like this. Eventually, Billy's boss comes up to him like, what is this? What are you doing? And Billy's like, are you going to put me in or not? And the boss like, fine. You know what? Fine. Just go to Kabul, get to work. So Billy goes, recruits a team of guys just like him, and shortly after that, he is on a plane on his way to Afghanistan to hunt down Osama bin Laden with an AK-47, an MP5, a 40mm grenade launcher, and a radio. Billy hits the ground running, pretty much immediately establishes his own militia of a couple hundred guys that he's all paying to fight for him, and uses this force to go around finding everybody and anybody related to the Taliban and Al-Qaeda that he can find. While he's in theater, he participates in the Battle of Tora Bora, again at the age of 71 years old. And after a couple of months, he comes to the conclusion they are not going to have the quick, violent capture of Osama bin Laden that he was hoping for, and that he decides that he is too old for this shit and heads back home. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is still not the end of the story.
Still not it. What?
July 2004, Billy is 74 years old when he gets approached by the CIA and offered to go on an extremely dangerous mission where if he is captured, he will more than likely be tortured and then killed, and it is a solo mission that he will have to complete by himself.
Solo
Billy
at 74.
immediately agrees without knowing what it even is. After accepting the mission, he finds out that he will be flown into Saudi Arabia, a country that he has never been to before, where he is going to be tasked with getting picture evidence that there is a high-level terrorist there that they believe to be there. And that terrorist is Imad Mugdia, an Islamic jihadist that has conducted terror operations all over the world. Between Billy Waugh capturing Carlos the Jackal and the 9/11 attacks, he was the most wanted terrorist on the planet. So Billy goes into Saudi Arabia with nothing more than a camera. Straight from the airport, he goes and finds somebody that's willing to give him driving lessons because he doesn't really know how to drive on the streets in Saudi Arabia. After Billy's confident that he can drive on his own, he then tells the driving instructor like, hey, I think I'm good right now. Just let me drive the car around for the rest of the day. You can fuck off. From there, Billy drives to the place that Mugdia is supposed to be, and right across the street, there's this restaurant. So Billy goes, he's drinking coffee, he's hanging out, and then he notices that there is a dumpster, and that dumpster has a pretty good shot right at the front door that he believes Imad Mugdia is at. So Billy finishes up his lunch, closes out his tab, and then heads over to that dumpster. When nobody's looking, he hops inside the dumpster, whips out his camera, and is just sitting there at the door waiting. After a while, sure enough, a dry cleaner shows up delivering the dry cleaning, and guess who answers the door? Imad Mugdia. Billy snaps a bunch of pictures, waits inside the dumpster, dry cleaner drives off, Imad shuts the door, Billy waits till nobody's around, hops out of the dumpster, gets in his training car, drives back to the airport, and heads back to America. The pictures then get verified it was in fact Mugdia, and that mission gets handed off to the special forces. Billy did his part. Billy
Yep.
continues working for the CIA. Again, we
Oh,
don't know what
going
all
back
he
to
does,
this
but
guy.
in 2017, we do know that he went to Hanoi, Vietnam. And the purpose of that trip was to be a dinner guest for General Giap, the same general that he had attempted to kill all those years ago during the Vietnam War at Oscar 8. The entire interaction takes place through a translator, but the whole thing has this aura of like the two old warriors that made it to the end of the road that fought on opposite sides, and now they're just kind of reminiscing about it together. They have a long conversation over the course of hours talking about their perspectives of the war, their tactics, everything that went down, and towards the end of it, Billy informs him that he was on a green light team. He then goes on to explain what that was. He was one of the few people that was qualified to jump in behind enemy lines with a nuclear warhead and detonate it. He then informs them that early on in the war, there was a serious conversation that they were going to have him jump behind enemy lines with that nuclear warhead and blow up a pass in the Ho Chi Minh Trail with a ground detonation that would not only blow up the trail itself, collapsing it in, but it would also irradiate the earth, making it not passable for thousands, tens of thousands, millions of years. Shutting down the Ho Chi Minh Trail would have drastically changed the entire war if it even happened after that. The translator, General Giap's son, said surely there was no way America was seriously considering using nuclear weapons on Vietnam, to which Billy replied, yeah, we were. I was on the team. The only reason America didn't go through with it is because it's basically opening Pandora's box. There's been that line in the sand of nobody uses nuclear weapons ever since they were first used in Japan, and America was worried of who would use nuclear weapons next and why they would be using them. Billy then informs General Giap's son that he actually wishes that America would have went through with it, and General Giap's son is obviously deeply offended, saying, this is my homeland. I'm paraphrasing here, but Billy rebuttals, yeah, it is, but if I could have stopped this war before it started, we could have saved 58,000 of my people and 500,000 of yours. At which point General Giap himself chimes in and says, yeah, but then we may not have won the war. Clearly implying that losing 500,000 men was well worth it if it meant winning in the end. I've thought about this interaction a lot, and there's a lot of different things that you can draw from this very short interaction, but I think the moral of the story here is war is awful, and whoever's willing to do whatever it takes is probably going to be the victor. This is not verifiable, but allegedly Billy Waugh's last mission was in 2011 at the age of 82 years old, where he went into Libya to assist with the overthrowing of Gaddafi. Billy would then allegedly enjoy about a decade of retirement before passing away on April 4th, 2023 at the age of 93 years old.
Wow. Holy. Oh.
His cremated remains were then spread during a halo jump over North Carolina. Billy's longtime boss at the CIA said, and I quote, "You'll never know 100th of the things Billy accomplished for us. Most of what Billy Waugh did was never written down. Almost everything was on verbal orders from someone like me to someone like him." And that is 1/100th of the story of Billy Waugh, the Godfather of the Green Berets. Thank you for watching.
Jeez,
Support the channels, go buy some merch on FatElectrician.com. Quack bang.
The amount
out
of stuff that's shared here. What the?
So I heard a story that you got close enough to bin Laden to kill him with a pencil.
Well, I could have killed him with a pencil easily, but pencil's not going to do the fucking job. Because if I went for his heart, I might miss that son of a bitch for 4 inches and just piss him off.
Yeah.
They should have let the man pop one in bin Laden. And there's 2 other videos I gotta catch up on. But it's 12:26 at the time we were finally wrap up this. It felt like I didn't have much more to say other than just like, yep, oh, ha, ha. Occasionally something. Nothing in particular really stuck out at me as things that I really needed to chime in and make a lot of extra commentary on. Which you don't always need it for a reaction, but it kind of helps to differentiate it between the people that just sit there and watch and do nothing. I don't want to be a reaction channel that just sits there, watches, and says or does nothing to add to it, or no jokes to make, or no commentary to add of my own. This one just kind of felt, in parts, it felt a little difficult to do that. I don't know if it's because of the length. Maybe it was, in part. But, yeah, it just didn't feel like I was being very lively, this reaction, so I apologize for that part. But this was a very, very fascinating story of a man who was willing to fight way after most people would have thrown in the towel. Like, he went to Libya in 2011. 2011. The man was in his 80s. Or was at least AT. Still willing to do stuff like that. It was nuts. I gotta wrap this up here because, one, I gotta get this video edited before starting on the editing process before I go to bed. Plus, it's getting warm in here, and I need to take Rosie out and my dog, and just gotta. This is a long session. I'm getting hot. All right, that's gonna do it for this one. But this was a very fascinating story. I did not ever know that there was thoughts at one point in time to potentially drop nukes attached to paratroopers behind enemy lines. There's that double-edged sword thing of, if we'd have done that, we could have stopped the war before it ever truly started, and then hundreds of thousands of people on one side and tens of thousands of people on the other side wouldn't have died. But then not only, like he said, opening Pandora's box of whoever uses nukes in combat again is kind of opening things up to be like, yeah, nukes are one of those things when you kind of need that line in the sand to be like, okay, if we go past this point, we're kind of, well, you gotta be careful about that. That's gonna be it for me today, though. Yeah, I'm donezo with this. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. Like if you enjoyed. Comment your favorite part of this story we just watched. Excuse me. Your favorite part of the story we just watched together. Subscribe if you're new and tap the bell to get notified whenever I upload videos. Any missing reactions, gameplay, or otherwise. Also, go check out my Discord. Link is in the description. Come join. We'll talk posts, memes, songs, videos, artwork, you can support your own stuff, and just have some fun. It's Blank Square Block 30, signing off.